And as our brothers and sisters in the fire department confront these things, so do we. We are there on the scene every time they roll a tire. We are there with them when, the house is burning. We're there with them when they're with the patient who possibly has contagious diseases. We're there with them at every step of the way. There's so many things that we come into contact with as far as hazards. Like I said, the contagious diseases, domestic violence. Personally, our agency, just this past week, we responded to a call for a gunshot wound victim. Our ambulance staged a safe distance with the Sheriff's Department to go in and secure the scene. The patient actually approached the ambulance before the Sheriff's Department ever found him, jumped into the back of the ambulance with the paramedic. Before the paramedic really understood what was going on, got in the back of the patient to assess the patient's wound, and at the moment of trying to assess the patient, he became combative, threatened our paramedic, and thankfully the gentleman left the ambulance of his own will. But there's so many cases you can read across where we're confronted with combative patients. People have been injured in the EMS field because we deal with these patients as well. We'd like to see these bills passed in an effort to retain very qualified people for this agency and this field of study, as we're a young field of study.
Thank you, Mr. Witcher. We appreciate it. Listen, you won't find anybody in this committee that doesn't appreciate what you do. It's a question of whether we have the money to do it or not. So,
understandable.
We certainly appreciate you all being here. Thanks for your testimony. Mr. Scott Mills and Dina Castles. Y'all can go. Thank you, fellas.
May I share something, Mr. Chairman? Or?
Yeah. Okay. I thought I'd give you the opportunity, please.
I'm sorry. I just want to reiterate the funding currently there for state supplemental pay. It was noted in a previous finance committee that there was a $2 million surplus in state supplemental pay already provided, which would leave the finance committee or the senators to only have to find $1.7 million. Currently, $129 million is allocated for state supplemental pay. It's going to have a decrease to $127 million, and that is a breakup between police, fire, constables, justice of the peace, and deputy sheriffs. The major impact is the deputy sheriffs. We allocate $53 million out of the state budget to them. The next one being the municipal police officers, which is $38 million, followed by fire department, which is $33 million. In that, there are several thousand practitioners that encompasses, roughly 8,900 sheriff's deputies, 6,000 police officers, 5,000 firefighters, and 856 constables and justice of the peace. When we ask the question of how we can fund it, for us, we're only 660 people, and we're only asking for $3.76 million. And it may sound conceited, but we are just a drop in the bucket. So I'd like to point that out. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for your testimony. Are you Ms. Dina Castles? And you Dina Castles?
Yes,
and you
I'm
Scott
Dina
Mills?
Castles.
Yes. All right. Ms. Castles, why don't you go ahead?
Again, my name is Dina Castles. I'm a paramedic with the East Baton Rouge EMS. I just want to touch on the hazardous part of our job and use myself as an example. Last Wednesday, I did not respond to what was issued out as a dangerous situation or a combative patient. I responded on a basic routine medical call, at which point when I arrived and got out and asked the individual 2 questions, I was attacked. I was punched in the mouth and caught off guard. I have 10 stitches across the inner top of my lip. I also have a sprained wrist. The supplemental pay is something that I think is important because when we are out on workers' comp or in this situation where I've been injured on the job, workers' comp is not paying me at this time. I'm having to use my own time and leave time to supplement my pay. And like the gentleman before me said, oftentimes we accompany police and fire and on all these calls. This particular call, police and fire were not there first. We were there first. And, it's just so much to consider, and I would hope that it is something that could be looked into financing and budgeting in to include us in that supplemental pay. One, a big deal is retainment of employees. I know personally my children are now afraid every time I get up and say I'm going to work in the morning, is mom coming back with a busted face again. So it's just something that I would hope would really be considered. Thank you.
We appreciate your testimony. Mr. Mills.
Scott Mills with the East Baton Rouge Parish EMS Paramedic Association. I think we've pretty much covered everything that, as far as the hazardous job we do, the education, the responses and all that. I just wanted to add to that, but it seems like we covered it. Besides, the turnover rate, retention efforts being limited as far as being a municipal or parish EMS, we don't have the luxury of offering what private services offer as far as sign-on bonuses and stuff of that nature. Mr. Frederick, I think, went over some numbers with y'all, and hope y'all would take into account what he had to offer and get with him on it and kind of go from there.
All right. Thank you for your testimony, sir. We appreciate it. Also here filled out white cards, Mr. Barry Ducey and Richard Frederick. You're testifying with...
I have nothing further to add, but I'll sit here if you'd like.
You're kind of enjoying it, huh?
Hot seat.
Yeah. Okay, Barry. Mr. Ducey.
Barry Ducey with the State Budget Office. I think the conversation between Senator Morell and Senator Tarver addressed the issue I was going to bring up, in that the budget does not contemplate this at this point. And I want this committee to take this into account. But this is not the only supplemental pay bill out there. There are others on the House side that this committee will have to address. I do not know whether they're actually going to move on the House side or not. They have not to this point. But there are others that have to be taken into account beside this one, that's adding other groups and also increasing the amount of supplemental pay.
All right. Mr. Frederick, do you have anything you want to add to your remarks from before?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. All right. There's some handouts that are being given to the members. Also here, filling out cards in support of, but not wishing to speak, Yvonne Smith, Richard Meisenheimer, Amy Mayu, George Stephenson, Lisa McDonald, Pat, I'm not sure, sorry, Lacey Spencer, Emily Robillard, Lucy Stephenson, Charles Broussard, Monica Verdun, Nikki Johnson. It looks, the last name, Brent, it's like Brent Crawford, Thomas Gilmer, Philip Myers, Keith Grigsby, Steve Neat, Nicole Yeager, Otha Henry, Joe McGee, King Coburn, Matt Powell, Bradley Harris, Shane Landry, Timothy Moyer, John Winstead, William Niemeyer, Chrissy Kosher, Thomasina Ryder, Rodney Kennedy, Jamie Hodges, last name Bradford, Ramon Cooper, Jeremy Wood, Curry Landry, James Lewis, Carl Mann, and Lane Johnson, Steve, I can't see the last, Confair perhaps. We thank all of you all for being here in support of this bill. Senator Morell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple quick points. The first is, as you can see from the implementation date, I appreciate the State Budgetary Office's comments, but this bill will not cost us anything this year. It actually won't be in the budget for next year. It would be in a budget after the new legislature comes in. Today, what we're voting on, ladies and gentlemen, is to establish allowing the people of the state of Louisiana to determine whether or not supplemental pay for EMS workers should be a priority. Though we have not had an additional group added to supplemental pay since 1971, we routinely add new groups to the existing groups. And by that I mean we've added, I want to say as recently as this current cycle, we added harbor police to police and supplemental, to the police sheriff section of supplemental pay. So we do it regularly. And when you look at the number of people in those groups, they eclipse the number of total EMS workers for parish and municipalities. I think when you consider, I think that we all know, as far as what we consider to be first responders was established by 9/11. That's basically where the people of the United States took note of, these are the people that are in harm's way. And no one has ever stated, in fact, it's a general assumption, that those emergency medical service providers are the people in harm's way. If we have established as a state, and we've allowed the people of the state to vote on several separate occasions to single out fire and police and every variation thereof, to simply allow in 2015 during a huge turnout election where people can establish for this legislature that the people of the state determine that creating supplemental pay for EMS workers is a priority, then that is something I think we should do. Additionally, I was talking to Senator Mills, there are a variety of different options, like some monies found in the UPL, where we could find monies to pay for this at that future date. So while we are dealing with some interesting budget problems that have happened as recently as over the weekend, a vote today on this measure does not make you put this in that consideration of those problems. This simply allows the people of the state to let us know if funding supplemental pay for emergency medical workers is a priority. If it is our responsibility as the legislature to come find the money to do so. But as previously stated, we're talking about $3.7 million right now, and the entire budget for supplemental pay is almost $150 million. So I know that you guys get really annoyed, and I appreciate it when you talk about drops in the bucket and comparative financing, but at the end of the day, this sends a message to EMS workers that we hold them as a priority, as high as those other members of law enforcement and fire protection. So I would ask for your favorable passage for the amended bill.
All right, thank you, Senator Morell. It's a great close, and I think the message needs to be. I personally have friends of mine who are EMS, and they do great work, because you know what the budget problems are with the state. What I would recommend that we do is hold the bill, and when we get the budget from the House, see if it can be put into the budget. Ms. Fredericks, I think, mentioned that there was some money someplace that I wasn't familiar with, and we could take a look at that. So that would be my recommendation. Is there objection on the committee to that? That's no objection. We're going to hold that bill, and we'll get till we get the budget.
Okay. With that, I can defer.
All you all do.
And with that, I would like to defer SB 440.